All right. Hey guys, I've been getting a lot of questions recently about Shadow Priest, like how to play it, what's a filler priority, um, what kind of stats do you want, what's the best thing to craft, that kind of thing. Um, I'm just gonna go do a quick little rundown of what I think is fulfills all these requirements that you guys are asking, and just like a little preface of saying, this is how I play Shadow Priest. It's not necessarily like the best way to play it per se. Like they're ready to receive some backlash of oh, do this instead of that, or don't do this, whatever. I get that. This is what I do on my Shadow Priest, and so take it for yourself if you want to take what I say or not. But either way, let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, I pulled all this stuff. I'm gonna show some clips today. I pulled all of them from my stream. So twitch.tv/Jafarsep. I'll try to link it down below um, in the box. So as far as gear, I'm sitting at a company like just over 30% haste. It's a good spot to be at, seeing as all your abilities recharge faster from haste. So like Mind Blast cooldown gets reduced, Shadow Word Death cooldown gets reduced. You can't really see it there because of the macro, but so if I put it here, Shadow Word Death has a 20-second cooldown. Um, and it generally just makes the build feel better and quicker, and more fluid. So for the first one, I'm just gonna go over using this build. Yeah, this build here, where I'm using Idol of Cthun. So like Mind Flay and Mind Seer have a chance to spawn a little tendril that does a replica of that, as well as Mind Seer. So like that's the biggest thing in this clip. So let's go over it. This is from a 25 no cud. Um, so it should be pretty comparable to like what like a regular good like high key would be. Um, and you'll see here that we go pretty fast into it. So like I said, this is from a no cud. So first thing you want to do is press Shadow Crash. Down here in the bottom right, I have like all the abilities used to help break down what I'm pressing at what spots. I actually don't know why I pressed a feather here. I must have like landed. Let's see. Must have landed a little farther away than I wanted to. Yeah, we landed a little far away from the pack and then had a feather over as the tank was pulling the pack together. But the first thing you want to do is Shadow Crash. Shadow Crash applies your dots to all targets, or sorry, to 8 targets within the Shadow Crash. And when you're spec'd into Misery, it also applies VT. So it's really cool, really easy to get up Void Touch, Vampiric Touch, and Shadow Word Pain um, to 8 targets. I actually don't know how big this pack is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. So it's almost perfect for this application. So first thing you want to do is Shadow Crash. It generates 15 insanity, which you can see right here. Um, and then what I do, and this I've gone back and forth, man. I don't know if like this is technically best or not. I think like technically you're supposed to put 2 Mind Blasts into a target before pressing Void Eruption, because Void Eruption resets your Mind Blast charges. Um, but I just feel like you prolong your damage output for so long that what I usually do is exactly this. Just pressing PI, which is macroed with Trinket and my potion, and then going straight into a Void Eruption. So PI, Trinket, which is not on my bars, but PI, Trinket, and potion. Straight into a Void Eruption, and then this will give you a little bit of Insanity Gen, but you want more, like almost instantly, because the whole point of this build is to just continuously Mind Seer. Mind Seer as much as you can. When you're spec'd into, where is it, Mind Melt, every time you Mind Seer, it's going to extend your dots. So essentially, you never have to recast your dots on a pack. That's like the goal. Also, my cat is freaking out and chewing on my backpack, which is fantastic. Um, so, anyways, back to insanity. You want to get some insanity going. That way, you can keep chaining mind series back to back to back. So I press Shadow Fiend here. When you're running this build, you don't run the Mindbender, so you only have to work with a Shadow Fiend, which is, let me just like spec into this. I'm pretty sure it's 3 minutes. There's a fucking giant spider in my wall. Holy shit. Sorry, sidetracked. Yeah, 3 minute cooldown. So 3 insanity for 15 seconds. I don't really track like exactly how much insanity. What is that? 3 times 15, 60 insanity. 60? No, it seems wrong. I don't I don't fucking know, man. Math. Um it gives you a lot of insanity. Um and so press that and then go into the basic rotation of sending out mind blasts and building insanity and then spend it on mind seer. I make a mistake right here. I should have pressed Void Bolt first because Void Bolt will increase the dots by I think 2 seconds or maybe 3 seconds when you press it. Let's see. Let's just read the thing. Actually, it won't tell me. Whatever. It increases your dots by a couple seconds when you press it, and it's just free instant damage. So might as well just press it. So I should have Void Bolted first, then Mind Blast, Mind Blast. Let's go through it. Mind Blast, Mind Games, because we're benefiting from Psychic Link here. So like essentially, most of your damage gets copied onto to other targets with VT on it. So your Mind Blast damage, your Mind Games damage, your Void Torrent, Mind Spike, Mind Flay, all that stuff gets replicated onto other targets with your dots on them, which is awesome. So I'm just trying to get out as much damage as I can here to start building insanity. Now, another thing you want to keep in mind is when you're running Yogg-Saron, and you have Mind Devour, it's very important to cast Mind Blasts to try to get free Mind Steer procs. Those Mind Steer procs do mad damage, and it essentially just carries your DPS. So the goal here is to build insanity and then dump it. So you see, as soon as I got to 60 insanity, as soon as I go over the breakpoint of 50, I dump in my Mind Steer, and then hopefully I should Void Torrent. Yeah, I'm going to Void Torrent here. And that way, all that Void Torrent damage, you can see my damage start spiking up, is replicated onto all these other targets that we're in combat with. Void Torrent also gives you a free 60 insanity. So you want to try to make sure you're not above 40, because then you'll overcap an insanity, and overcapping insanity is the worst thing to do as Shadow Priest. Like I said, I don't play Shadow Priest perfectly. I do overcap on insanity quite a lot. Like you'll see right here, I'm going to overcap. But the general goal is to not overcap insanity and spend all your insanity on spenders to do big damage. So here we were at what, quick math, 38. So after or before pressing Void Torrent, I got up to 98 because of Void Torrent, and then I pressed Halo. Ideally, what I should do here is, ideally I should press Mind Seer, like 1 or 2 ticks of Mind Seer, just get back down to like 50 insanity or something. Then press Halo, because Halo also generates 10 insanity. So right here I overcap by 8 insanity, which is not the best. But Halo does good damage in AoE, and my thought process right here is just get damage out. I know these guys, these other DPS in my group, are big blasters, especially when the Destrolock starts rolling his cooldowns. He'll catch up to my damage pretty quick, and I want to get my damage out there just as soon as possible and just blast the mobs. So we pressed Halo, overcapped a little bit, but whatever. Then now we're going to press Mind Steer. When you're pressing Mind Steer, you'll see I'm targeting the Beastmaster here. If I target something like the War Spear or the Longbows, War Spears have a tendency to charge to the farthest target. And so if I Mind Steer them, my Mind Steer is now not cleaving onto the other targets. It's getting pulled away and going into wherever they charge to. Same thing with the Longbows. Tanks have a tendency to like kite the mobs, and if they kite away from whatever longbow I'm casting onto, once again I lose the cleave damage. So I know Beastmasters, the Plane Stomper, the Horn Sounder, all those guys, all those targets are really good to Mindseer onto because they move with the tank. Um, I think Beastmaster especially because it doesn't have any casts that stop its movement. Like the Horn Sounder has the Rally the Clan cast. The Plane Stopper, as you can see here, is casting Disruptive Shout. I think Beastmaster doesn't have any casts that go along with it. We can actually double check that. Might as well since we're here. No cud. Where's the Beastmaster? Beastmaster. Yeah, it just summons the bird and then it's essentially just a hunter. So it just moves around. Um, which is good. Like I said, very good target to Mindseer off of. Um, as you can see here with this build, I am running Mind Spike also, and I'm getting Mind Spike like free cast procs here. I have a tendency to just let these go. I don't really pay attention to them too much. I care more about building with keeping Mind Blast on cooldown because Mind Blast does more damage per cast, so it's like more effective to use. And if I have free Insanity to use, I'm not gonna overcap by pressing Mind Spike. It's not that big of a DPS increase. I might as well just Mind Seer until I get down at least to fewer targets. Then the priority shifts a little bit. But that's really most of it. Is just like get your Shadow Crash out, Shadow Crash out. Then cooldowns. Make sure your potion. Make sure you press your trinket to give you a lot of crit. And then straight into my cooldown. Build. Dump with Mindseer. Build. Dump with Mindseer. That's the whole game loop of this build. Another little trick: when things start getting low, press Shadow or Death for free Insanity. So like this Horn Sounder here has 5% HP left. I should have just pressed a Shadow or Death on him. If that Horn Sounder dies with my Shadow or Death debuff on that guy, it'll give me 30 Insanity. So it's really good to use to just build Insanity, especially when you're going from pack to pack to line up bursts going into new packs. So we'll just play this out here. So as we get low, oops. Hello? Okay, it's just gonna, let's do this. Go here, pause, super slow. Okay, so as the pack starts dying, you'll see I Shadow or Deathed two things. So exactly what I was saying. This got low, so I Shadow or Deathed. And then I Shadow or Death something else, maybe the same thing. Actually, I Shadow or Death the longbow. So I Shadow or Death that guy. He dies pretty quickly, gives me a free 30 insanity. It's going to start building up. And this guy has a little bit more HP. It's probably going to live just a tad bit longer. So it gives me a little bit of time to start spending that insanity I'm generating in order to build more insanity, not to overcap. So like I said, that's the gist of Cthun and Yogg-Saron. Is your whole idea is to build, get a Mind Seer going, start generating that gameplay loop. Hopefully Cthulhu procs and you get some free tendies that also Mind Seer along with you. That'll do a lot of damage. And then spending Mind Blasts, make sure they're not on cooldown to try to build procs for free Mind Seers. That's really all of it. You can play around with Psychic Link. So when you have some downtime and you're missing some insanity and you want to start building insanity with Void Torrent, you also benefit from the cleave damage of Psychic Link. So that's good. Now, opposite of this build is the build I tend to run quite often, especially in hierarchies, when you want to start prioritizing single target damage and sorry, Finn just message in chat just fucking threw me off. Why am I awake? Because I was trying to sleep, but I had this video thing stuck in my head, and I wanted to get it down before I forgot about it, and I couldn't sleep. Okay, so with this build, We want to start prioritizing single target damage. So like the big mobs in the pack. Like in this clip I'm going to show you from Temple, you have the Water Ellie and the Water Speaker. Those are the two big important mobs. So you want to try to focus those down. And you don't really care about killing the droplets. Yes, they do splash damage. Um, yes, you can like make your numbers look good by mind searing on them. But our goal is to time the key, and to do that, we need to kill the important mobs, of which being like the Water Speaker and the Elemental. This build is slightly harder to play than the Mindseer build. You don't just build, spend on Mindseer. Um, this build, I have noticed with myself, I get very um, preoccupied with spending Mind Blasts and Shadow or Deaths to extend my Mind Bender because of this talent. And so you'll see, like, when I play this build, sometimes more often than Mindseer, I'll overcap on Insanity, which is, like I said, not a good thing. But it does happen. It's not the end of the world. Um, just gotta take it in stride and go with it. So the big thing with this build, the pluses of it, like I said, single target damage. You're a 1 minute build because instead of running Void Eruption, you're running Dark Ascension. Um, now notice the difference between Dark Ascension and Void Eruption. Void Eruption just increases your damage done by a flat, I think it's like 10-15% maybe. Whereas Dark Ascension only buffs your non-periodic spells like Mind Blast, Mind Spike, Shadow or Death, the cleave damage from Mindbender. It only buffs those spells. So stuff like Seer, stuff like Void Torrent, your dot damage doesn't really get buffed by it. So you want to try to prioritize getting out big nukes. Like I said, Mind Blast, Shadow or Deaths at low targets, Mind Games even. And do that on a 1 minute cooldown, which lines up perfectly with Mindbender. These you always send together, and you want to try to send them on cooldown to line up with PI. PI is a 2 minute cooldown. These are 1 minutes. So send these every minute on the minute, and then every 2 minutes on the 2 minute mark, send PI. Another good thing with this build is you're going to be sending out a lot of Devo Plagues, and ideally all the targets are already dotted with Shattered Pain and Void Bam Touch. So you'll benefit from this talent here, just increasing the damage done to that target with your Mind Blast. So, like I said, this is the boss killing, big mob killing build. In higher keys, you'll benefit a lot from Idol of N'Zoth also, because since you're already taking Void Torrent, might as well just take these 3 points. It's right there. Instead of taking this, you'll benefit a lot from Idol of N'Zoth because it ramps up, and then when things live long time, in higher keys, they have a tendency to live more than 10 seconds. You have a chance for those echoing voids to then implode on themselves and do good splash damage. Once again, we're also going to run Psychic Link. So all the big nukes we're sending out with Mind Blast and Mind Spikes and Mind Games, also Void Torrent, all getting cleaved onto other targets. So you'll see here in this clip, this is from a 22 Temple. You'll notice first, I'm going to pre-target and focus the Water Speaker because that's like the thing we need to kick. We don't want to let kicks go off. But I'm only really targeting the Water Elemental and the Water Speaker. These little droplets, all the other DPS will kill it. I'll kill it just passively with the dot damage and the cleave that Shadow Priest can do. But really our targets here are the big guys. So you'll see here, first thing I want to do is I make sure dots get on the two big targets I care about. Shadow Crash only has a small radius it hits. So like whatever this radius is, it only hits targets within that radius. So there's a chance if like say I throw a Shadow Crash here, let's say like this mob won't get hit by it. Maybe this mob that's like farther back won't get hit by it. And the one thing I don't want to let happen is the two big mobs that we're focused on killing not get dotted. So I guarantee those things are dotted by just manually dotting them. And then after that, we'll send our Shadow Crash to get everything else dotted. All the smallies that we really don't really care about, but we want to cleave down anyways. Now the rotation for this build is kind of a lot, especially if you're first picking up Shadow Priest. It's a very strict rotation you kind of have to stick to. there's two main rules. Always send Mindbender before Dark Ascension, and always press Shadow or Death immediately after pressing Mindbender. The goal here is to Mindbender, Shadow or Death, do like a filler spell combination in the middle, and then 20 seconds later, still have Mindbender rolling so you can press Shadow or Death again. And that's like an ideal Mindbender ramp. So let's just go through this pull. So we Shadow Crash, Mindbender. I even mess up. I press PI here first. Shouldn't do that, but it is what it is. So I send my cooldowns. So PI, Dark Ascension. And I don't know why I chose this clip. I scuff it. I should be pressing my Shadow or Death here, but I just don't. But you'll see, even if you mess it up, it's not the end of the world. You'll still get your damage off. You'll still do all right. Why am I not pressing Shadow or Death? It's insane. But you'll see here, every time I press Mind Blast, and I should be pressing Shadow or Death, my Mindbender goes up by 1 second. And that's kind of the idea, is just getting Mindbender uptime. So I have a very I don't know, like a tendency I do in Temple with this first pull is I'll always Vamp Embrace the first AoE that goes off from the elemental. That way I don't have to move. I don't have to go LOS the cast. I don't have to worry about anything other than casts on me and this big giant swirly on the ground. That way I can just sit there, DPS, don't have to move, just tunnel into bosses. So when we do that, we want to make sure we're getting all our damage out. And you'll see here, pressing Halo, because Halo benefits greatly when it's more than one target, so 2 or more. And then just spamming out Devo Plagues onto our big targets and trying to get out as much cleave damage from Mindbender and Psychic Leak as we can. So I'm still not pressing Shadow or Death, and this guy has 5%, 3% left of his health. I don't know why I'm not pressing it, but ideally it should go like this. I summon a punching bag here. Yeah. Okay, so ideally it should go like this. Like you Shadow Crash, Mindbender, Death, and then we can press our cooldowns. It's not going to work because I have a macro to something else. But ideally you press your cooldowns, filler spell, do whatever you got to do. And see, I'd have more haste, so we'd have more Mindbender or Mind Blast charges, but Shadow or Death is almost coming back up, and we want to try to squeeze that one in. If we had PI rolling, it probably would have fit. So that's like the ideal ramp for a Mindbender, is just getting Shadow or Death in the first and Shadow or Death at the end. So that's pretty much how you do AoE with this build. Like I said, I run this build a lot in high keys, simply because it like I said, it's the big boss killer. You do more boss damage, you do more prio damage, and you're a 1 minute spec. So like when you play with pugs, you don't know exactly which route they're gonna go. You can just send your cooldowns kind of willy-nilly and not really care about being like a strict 2 minute class. Now the last clip I want to go over is just pure single target. This is the same build with a few subtle changes. So this is the Mythic Plus build that I run for Tyrannical Week and most of the time. And then this is the Radzageth build. Only changes I do is I take away the points in Zoth and I put it in the stuff for free Devo Plague and Mind Sears, but we're not running Mind Sears. So that's the big changes. And over here, just like a fade reduction cooldown. So with this is the same thing as before, except we're going to really focus on getting that perfect Mindbender ramp and opener. So you'll see here, first global is always going to be Shadow Crash. That means we don't have to apply our dots. Mindbender straight into a Shadow or Death, and then immediately PI with cooldown. Now after we press our cooldown, we want to start getting our Mind Blasts off of cooldown. We want to make sure they start rolling and never let it just sit there at 2 charges. So press Mind Blast, press Devo Plague, which is good because every time we have 3 dots on the target, we benefit from our mastery of increasing all of our damage done for each of our dots. So if you ever above 50, dump with a Devo Plague, and then cast Mind Blast at the end. I had to move a little bit from a Lightning, but Mind Blast, Mind Games into Void Torrent. That's like the typical single target opener, which is what I honestly have been trying to perfect on Raz. Once again, disclaimer, don't know if this is like super optimal. Don't know if like the Sims or the Shadow Priest guys that actually do like the theory crafting would argue with a different opener. But this is what I've been doing on Raz. It feels pretty good. And seems to get damage out just fine. So we channel our Void Torrent here. And then as soon as we get to 100, we'll dump another Devo Plague. Try to make sure our goal here is to have these 3 dots here always active at all times. It's kind of hard with Devo Plague and like moving around and trying to get casts off, but the goal is 100% uptime on all your dots. So once again, Mind Blast is coming off cooldown here. So we're going to Mind Blast. I got a free DP proc, which is awesome. You see that here. So we just spam out Devo Plagues. Now, if you like overwrite Devo Plagues, what it does is the duration doesn't ever extend. Like I think the base duration of Devo Plague is what, 6 seconds? Yeah, 6 seconds. The duration never goes up. The damage done from like your old Devo Plague, let's say it does like an arbitrary 1,000 damage. If you have Devo Plague running, let's say it has 500 damage left, and you press another Devo Plague on top of it, it won't get rid of the old Devo Plague or the new one. It'll just add the damage to the new Devo Plague duration. So the duration will go back to 6 seconds, and then now it'll do 1,500 damage instead of just 500. So it's good, especially with running Mind Flay Insanity, which is this talent here. If you have just a shit ton of Insanity generation, you can overwrite this buff, and it's not really losing too much. Because during your opener, you will have a lot of Insanity generation, as you see from this clip. We just go kind of crazy with Insanity. Just spam Devo Plagues out. Doesn't really matter if you spend your Mind Flay Insanity. If you can, cool. It's just like on the filler list we'll get into in a second. It's not the highest priority. So we're going to keep going here. So you'll see here, this is kind of like a good cooldown timing. We have Mindbender active, 5 seconds left on it. And we have Shadow or Death coming up in 6 seconds. So I almost know, guaranteed, I'm going to get another Shadow or Death here because I'm going to keep spamming out Mind Blasts. So Devo Plague, Mind Spike for 2 stacks of Mind Melt, which makes our next Mind Blast free. I keep saying free, it's not free. Makes it instant cast, which I guess is free, it just costs mana. And then so we have 3 seconds here on the Mindbender still going, and 3 seconds left on our cooldown of Shadow or Death. I'm going to redot to make sure that if I get this mechanic that I have to run out, my dots will still roll. We get a lucky proc here also on Mind Blast, so that is amazing. We love procs on Mind Blast. So Mind Blast proc, extend our Mindbender just a little bit longer, DP into a Shadow or Death. That's the full sequence of a Mindbender. I know it's a lot. I know I'm talking a lot, but that's like ideally what you want to do to get damage out. That suffers a lot when you have to move. So when Shadow Priests always cry about moving, it's usually during a Mindbender ramp. It's like you have such tight timings of trying to get that second Shadow or Death in that if you get this mechanic and you have to move out to Narnia, it hinders your damage. But like I said, just do mechanics, and your damage will come on your next Mindbender ramp. We are a 1-minute class playing this build, so it's super fun to just send the cooldowns on cooldown and always have damage running almost. Let's see, anything else good in this clip? Like I said, don't need to press Halo and single target. It's from a damage perspective, damage neutral. So if you press it, it does X amount of damage per like I don't know, it's like a 1.5 second cast or something. Um, with the changes giving it insanity, it probably gains a little bit of value in single target, but as far as I can tell, not enough to press it. Especially during cooldowns, I've already so many other buttons to press that pressing Halo and or Divine Star doesn't really make sense for me. Um, but yeah, so don't worry about pressing Halo unless your group needs it. Like you'll see when sparks come out on this boss, I'll press it simply to heal the group up. It does quite a bit of healing when everyone's stacked together and gets hit by it. So don't worry about pressing Halo single target from just a damage perspective. And then for Mindbender, Shadow or Death, cooldowns, Mind Blast, Mind Blast, Mind Blast, and extend Mindbender until you can get a second Shadow or Death in until that comes back off cooldown. That's the biggest things with single target build is just learning the Mindbender rotation. And honestly, a lot of it just comes with practice. Now, as far as like gear, I made, like I said, I'm sitting at a comfy 30% haste. If I remember correctly, the Sims say like just keep getting haste, just go for haste until you can't get any more haste. And I'm boosting my damage a lot. Oh, I'm actually missing a socket. I'm boosting my haste a lot with this engineering bracers, um, because they're single statted. Like every other piece here has two stats, like haste plus mastery, haste plus mastery, and this one's just haste, so you get more of the stat, which is really good because it gives me room to like use whatever weapon I really want. But ideally, this would also be haste mastery. As far as trinkets, there's a nifty website that the more professional priests use, or make and maintain. The people from Warcraft priests use this website, and it gives you all the sims for everything. So like you want trinket combos here. This is our best trinket combo in single target. This is our best trinket combo in dungeons and yada yada yada. You can see like alchemy here, like what file to use, what consumables to use, all that good stuff. I'll try to send a link down in the description box for this also. That's a good little resource if you ever want to like study up on what you should be doing and what you should be crafting and whatnot. Um, that's super helpful. But before I even knew about that website, I just made these bracers because a lot of times when you're running in Mythic Plus, your role as a caster is very very competitive, right? Like what do we have to choose from? You have mages, boomkins, shamans. I guess not really shamans right now, but usually shamans are up there. Um, Hunters, warlocks. So like you got to make yourself more competitive. And what's going to make the difference between inviting a shadow priest versus a warlock, boomkin, mage? Warlocks and boomkins have B-res. Mage has lust. Hunters can bring lust. Shamans bring lust. Priests, all you really bring is Mass Dispel, which is a great cooldown you can use to save the group, especially in like weeks like bursting. But other than that, not a lot. And so to make myself a little bit more competitive, I just built engineering bracers with the NGB res on them. Little disclaimer: the NGB res kind of sucks this expansion, um, but still kind of good to use if, let's say, you're running with like a resto druid or someone, and that person dies. That's your B reser, and that person dies. You can try to B res them. Might fail a few times, but the option's there for you to have it. So that's a good option. I also made ring because it's perfectly statted rings, um, as well as obviously Elemental Lariat you need to run. It's just best for every single person, every single spec across the board, I'm pretty sure. So those are the things that I spent um, my sparks on. I also made boots because that's just another good a good slot to have perfect statted stuff on, and and pants, because of the tier pieces, the pants are the worst stats. Do I still have them? I do have them. So they're crit verse. Crit verse are our 2 worst stats. We kind of want to try to get rid of that. The other options are like haste mastery, haste verse. This piece is also kind of bad, but at least has haste on it. Crit mastery, also kind of bad, but at least has mastery. And then crit haste is good, haste mastery is best. So I said, you know what, let's just make pants. Other than that, there's not a lot of let's go over filler spells actually. So ideally the filler spells change. So I don't have a punching bag, do I? Oh no. Let's go back to Veldraken. So if you're running this build, the filler spells go like this. It goes, obviously keep Mind Blast charges as low as you can all the time. And then Mind Spike for 2 stacks of Mind Melt, which is this here. So you want 2 stacks of that. And then if you have a Mind Flay Insanity from pressing Devo Plague recently, press the Mind Flay Insanity, and then go back to keep pressing Mind Spike until Mind Blast comes off cooldown. Don't really worry about pressing Mind Flay too much, at least with this build, because the only reason you would press Mind Flay is to try to benefit from this, and since we're not talented into that right now, don't really care about it. So keep Mind Blast off cooldown, Mind Spike, Mind Spike. I'm going to press Devo Play because I have a free one there. And I don't know why it's evading, but it's a tanking dummy. Mind Blast, Mind Spike, Mind Spike, Mind Blast, Mind Spike, Mind Spike, Mind Blast, Devo Plague, Mind Blast, Mind Spike, Mind Spike, Mind Flay Insanity. Mind Blast is coming off cooldown, so Mind Blast, Devo Plague, reapply dots, Mind Spike, Mind Spike, Mind Flay Insanity. That's the filler. Obviously, you press your cooldown to the middle of that, but that's like the priority there. Now, if we're going to spec into these 2 things, like we would for big AoE dungeons like No Cut or Algothar Ice Academy, we would run this build, and it changes our priority a little bit. Because we're running Cthun, we want to try to proc as many tentacles as we can, so we're going to prioritize pressing Mind Flay a little bit more often. So we're going to press dots up. Same thing, we want to make sure Mind Blasts are always recharging their stacks. Mind Spike twice for the Mind Melt buff here. Press Mind Blast again because it's off cooldown. Mind Spike, Mind Spike. We have Devo Plague, right? So press Devo Plague. We have 2 stacks of this already. Spend it on the Mind Blast. Go back to spiking. And then Mind Flay Insanity. If you're ever in a situation, like let's see if we can get to it. If you're ever in a situation where you're out of Mind Blast charges, you have 2 stacks already of Mind Spike, and you don't know what to press, just press Mind Flay if you're running this build, because Mind Flay will have a chance to proc a tentacle for you. So Mind Blast, double Mind Spike. We're just getting good procs here, I guess. I got really good procs. Let's just dump all our procs. Okay. So Mind Flay Insanity, Mind Spike, Mind Spike. And we're going to go back to Mind Spiking. And then we're going to press Mind Flay. Now, we got lucky. We got a Mind Blast proc in the middle of that. But see how Mind Flay here proc this tentacle? That's what we want. And you can also proc it for Mind Flay Insanity also. So pressing Mind Flay just gains more value when you're spec'd into Idol of Cthun. Other than that, that's I think everything I had to cover. All the questions that we had so far. So